The first thing I'd like to ask is there anybody here who was affected by the PGV blowout during the storm and has not given testimony and been videotaped or submitted written testimony? Is there anybody here that falls into that category?
What if you're unsure if you were affected? Yeah, I've heard of the symptoms, but I haven't really had
I'm not sure. There's nothing I could say that would make you sure or less sure.
I know.
The thing is if it's possible, and you know, there are things that happen to you that you don't understand and can't explain, by all means, give testimony. I would err on the side. Wouldn't you agree, Bob? Yeah, I think we need to err on the side. But in the last 2 meetings we've had, what's happened is that the folks that had wanted to give testimony, we said we'd do it after the meeting. And as a consequence, they got out of here very, very late. And so I wanted to provide an opportunity for people to start giving that testimony now if they wanted to. And we could get them so that they finish when everybody else finishes this meeting. Is there anybody that would like to do that?
I'll take a stab.
Okay.
Terry's going to do it. Are you going to wait for Donald, or are you ready to start?
We can do it. We can do it anytime during the meeting too. And if it's just the two of you, that won't take very long. And if you want to sit in the meeting and listen, I don't mind staying as long as it takes to get everybody.
But you'll do it anytime.
But yeah, anytime you want to do, just come get me and we'll go over here. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. Okay, the first order of business is an issue that is not of concern to well, it is of concern to Puna Pono Alliance, but it's not one that we've been actively working on. And I would like to introduce Russell Rudiman, our state senator, and Roy Lozano, our candidate for District 4. And the two of them would like to talk about the issue of voter disenfranchisement in Puna. Russell.
Thank you, Tom. And Roy's asked me to speak up, and we'll make this brief. What we're asking today is if you or anybody you know was unable to vote due to your roads being blocked by storm debris. So the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, is considering filing a challenge on behalf of Puna voters to question the way the election went forward the day after the hurricane. And what they need is some declarations. It's a simple one-page declaration, or 1.25 page, saying that you were unable to get to your polling place because of storm debris. And if you're in that situation, you're willing to sign, it's extremely valuable to us. If you know some other people who were in that situation, Roy will have these forms at his office. That's Roy Lozano, the chiropractor's office in Powhatan, right in front of Island Naturals. And he'll have these for the next day or so. This is urgent because the deadline is Thursday for them to file this challenge. And without getting political, the difference, some races hang in the balance. And the difference between who we might get versus who it looks like we get if there's not a redo, it's a big difference to issues like geothermal neighbors. So if you're in that situation, please, Roy has a bunch of these forms. We would really like your signature if you are physically unable to vote due to storm damage. That's all. Thank you very much.
I would like to say something. So this is particularly to 4.4 precinct, Powhatan High School. Anybody who was forced to try to vote on the 9th of August and couldn't make it because you were busy 36 hours after the storm, you couldn't. You want to get one of these forms. I have a few here. They need about 30. We've got about 15. They are so excited. ACLU is so excited about this case. They get 100 requests a month, and they put this on the top of the list because of Russell. But if they don't have the info by Thursday morning, it ain't gonna happen. So if anybody in this room didn't make it, or you wanna take one to a friend, I'll have them in my office all day long tomorrow, and then Thursday morning, that's it. So do or die.
Let me add, thank you, Rick. Let me add one thing. The ACLU is interested in either precinct that was open. If you, no matter which place, which council district you're in.
Okay, so.
They hope to file a complaint based on all 4 Pono area districts and force them to do a redo of the vote. So whichever precinct you're in, if you were blocked by storm debris from voting, we're interested in that signature. And it is a very rare challenge that has really good objective merit to it, and we may get a do-over from this election. Thank you.
So who do you get the form back to?
Roy is collecting them, and either ACLU will receive them from us on Thursday morning, or if they decide not to do it, I will be taking them to the Elections Commission's meeting on Friday. But let's get them to Roy's office by Wednesday night if at all possible. Thank you guys for letting us talk about that.
Next on the agenda, I would like to spend just a moment discussing, my wife was very, very interested, Laura was very, very interested in why the storm, as we read about it in the media, seemed to have no relationship to the storm we experienced if we happened to live in Lower Puna. And she read a lot, and I've been reading some too, and I think I understand what happened. And I'd like to pass that on. And there are a lot of facts that I don't know yet, but I'd like to pass on what I think happened. The basic facts of this come from the weather folks, the U.S. Meteorological Service. What happened is the hurricane was tracking a little bit north, and then about sometime the night before it shifted back down to the south, so that the hurricane was tracking toward Pahoa. Not Pahoa, to the point, to the eastern tip of Hawaii. So it was tracking right toward the eastern tip. Everyone knows that the worst part of the storm is the northeast quadrant. So that means that the area to the north and to the east of where the eye was is where they were experiencing high winds. Everybody also knows that we have 2 huge mountains that just come essentially out of the ocean and are sitting there, and everybody's wondered what the effect was. What happened was that the eye, which was tracking towards the eastern tip, when the front edge of the storm hit the mountain, the eye stalled. The eye stopped moving. It was supposed to hit Pahoa, or hit the eastern tip, at about 10 p.m., but it stopped. So the eye's out in the ocean, and the hurricane's spinning around. That turned out to be bad news for Lower Puna, because during the period of time that eye was stalled, Lower Puna was experiencing sustained winds of 60 miles an hour. And this is the weather folks that give these numbers. Sustained winds of 60 miles an hour with gusts over 75. And it just kept happening. So, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, the thing did. Sometime after the eye had stalled for an hour or two, a couple hours, the storm started to break up. So at that point, the way they track storms, it looked like it went to the south. And landfall was made early in the morning south of here, and when the hurricane made landfall, sustained winds, and I'm going to tell you what I remember here, because I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was about 40 miles an hour. So landfall occurred, and then sustained winds are 40 miles an hour. So if you're sitting in the governor's office or in the newsroom at the Honolulu Star-Advertiser, or even in the newsroom at the Tribune-Herald, what you know is that at landfall, this tropical storm and hurricane that we've been fearing a great deal really isn't much of a big deal. There's a lot of storms that have higher winds than 30 or 40 miles an hour. So essentially the attitude was, and the initial reports were all, hey, things are going good. Hawaii, survived the hurricane. Things are looking pretty good. And oh, by the way, a tourist from Alabama that was worried about getting home for a wedding or something caught her plane and everything's okay. So that's kind of the way the original stories were done. Now, Friday, they're going out and they're starting to look, this is Friday morning, they're going out and they're starting to look for where is their damage and things. Well, what happens is where's the first place, you're leaving from Hilo, where's the first place you're going to look is, if you're heading to Lower Puna, is you're going to look at Hawaiian Paradise Park. And of course, Hawaiian Paradise Park is totally without electricity, with roads all down, and everybody's a little concerned about that. So the first thing that comes into the mind of these people who had already thought we dodged a bullet, the first thing that happens is they find that Hawaiian Paradise Park is all messed up. That is the day the election people had to decide on the election, and I have no evidence that there was anything except a few cell phone calls from anything in the down south of Pahoa and east of Pahoa. I don't think there was anything except a few cell phone calls that had alerted the authorities yet that there was some real damage in vacation land, that, the whole area, Pahoa, all the area out there where many of us are from. The first helicopter that I know flew over late in the evening on Friday. Do you know of any earlier than that, Bob?
I saw them twice that day. There may have been one in the afternoon. I saw two that day.
So sometime late on Friday, there is a discovery. They've already decided to close the precincts in Hawaiian Paradise Park, but there's a discovery that, hey, there may be a further problem in Lower Puna besides Hawaiian Paradise Park. So at that point, on Saturday, by Saturday morning, I think the authorities were pretty much aware that, hey, there was a big problem, which leads me to something I always laughed about. Bob Patrici opened Pohiki Road along with some other neighbors, but a lot of Bob's tree cutting effort, he had opened Pohiki Road. They got through to Walani sometime Saturday, so, I was waiting. There was only one lane open, so I had to wait. I was trying to get to town for something. I was going down Pohiki Road at the triumphant entry of the National Guard. But the road was already open when the National Guard did the triumphant entry because of Bob. And the road was already open because they were delayed in getting that kind of assistance there, because I don't think they originally realized the nature of the problem. They thought they were looking at 30 and 40 mile an hour winds south of here. So anyhow, I think that's what happened on the storm, and I hypothesize this. I was in a group that did lessons learned on Katrina, and I don't know if any of you remember what the headline on the day Katrina hit New Orleans was. Does anybody remember what the headline was? What happened is Katrina, when it hit land, it started weakening, and by the time it got to New Orleans, it was only a Category 3 hurricane. And so the New Orleans Picayune and the mayor, in statements on the night that Katrina hit, said, New Orleans dodges bullet. You can go back and look that up if you want to. So I think the same sort of thing happened. Of course, we didn't lose 1,400 souls in Lower Puna, not comparing apples and oranges. But I think the same thing happened in that they were very slow to realize where the damage was. I'm willing to answer any quick questions about that, but that's a summary of what I think happened and why much of the response and a lot of the decisions that have been made have been made.
Well, it's just weird that they at first gave the 3 weeks for the mail-in voting, and then they suddenly said, oh no, it's gonna be the 1 day. That was just weird.
And I don't have any idea what the purpose of that were. The next thing I'd like to do, just educationally, is I'd like to talk just very quickly about what happened on the night that PGV released. What happened was at about 7:26, after losing one line and the other. So let me go back to our critique of the March 13th, 2013 trip at PGV. Jay Ignacio stood in front of the community and said that they would never rely on one line again, because the trip that occurred when the second line went down, there are 2 lines from PGV out, caused the emergency steam relief. Well, as the evening progressed on the night of the storm, first one line and then another, and this is quoting Mike, I don't have the numbers, Mike Calachini, first one line and then the other were going out of commission. So they were transmitting full load, or actually 70% load through one line for part of the evening. They continued to operate the plant at 70%, and they lost both lines at 1926 military time, 7:26 p.m. They lifted the emergency reliefs, and in addition, they apparently lifted a 9-inch relief that was unabated. So they had these emergency reliefs that are relieving through the rock muffler, being treated with caustic soda, which if everything works right, and there's questions about if everything works right, but if everything works right, it would reduce the ppm of hydrogen sulfide from about 1,000 to about 40 ppm. So big reduction in the amount of hydrogen sulfide. But they also had an unabated leak. That means it wasn't going through any muffler. And that leak lasted, by my calculations, it looks like almost an hour and 45 minutes. As a consequence, huge amounts compared to past accidents, except for the blowout, huge amounts of hydrogen sulfide were released. PGV publicly has said that 70 pounds of hydrogen sulfide were released. That's an industry estimate, and it's more likely that it's low than that it's high. Usually those estimates are low. But 70 pounds of hydrogen sulfide is equivalent to about half of what was released each hour in the blowout. So we're talking about substantial amounts of hydrogen sulfide. Now, Goddard did a study of the blowout and concluded that people's health symptoms were consistent with the amount of hydrogen sulfide released. So based on that, since the amounts are comparable, it would be there is nothing about the fact that there's health effects that should surprise anybody. Yes, Bob?
There's a really big difference, and during the blowout, we were able to leave. In this particular case, people were not able to leave.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So the first thing I want to establish is that the blowout was serious. The second thing that I would like to say is that this accident was totally predictable and totally preventable. Why the decision was made to leave the plant online during a hurricane is just impossible to imagine. This all happened from a very predictable event. PGV put out a statement that said that they had done everything in accordance with the hurricane procedures of their own emergency response procedures. I had those procedures read to me. And the procedures say that PGV is of sufficiently rugged construction that they don't have to worry about wind damage to the plant. It says that PGV is located in such a place that they don't have to worry about flood damage. So their procedures say run around and pick up all the loose stuff and be sure everything's tied down. Then it goes on to say that it is likely during a storm that you will lose load. This is the key word. The plant will be protected by the emergency steam relief system, not the community, the plant. So they actually did what their relief said, and they let the emergency steam relief system protect the plant in what I would consider disregard for the community.
Can we have a little bit of discussion here on this?
Sure.
First, I want to say I've heard from several people, the closer people, that they saw explosions. And Damien is one of these people, and since I didn't see the explosions, I wanted him just to kind of describe what, and I was wondering if that was the 9-inch valve failing that could cause something like that, or?
It is unclear to me why a 9-inch relief would lift, and I don't know if that 9-inch relief is on one of the, it's about the right size for a relief to be on a wellhead. You know, so I suspect that that 9-inch relief protects one of the wells, so that when they say a 9-inch relief was lifting, they're really talking about a flow rate equivalent to a blowout. I don't know that. That's conjecture on my part.
And I wanted to have his description of the explosion so we can start to work that out, because it's people from Lonnie Puna. Damien lives in Leilani, so from a wide area, at least 3 or 4
And I actually
people.
live up towards the top part of Leilani. So I look down towards geothermal, I can see the glows. I know exactly where it's at, down Kahukai. And I saw an explosion about the timeline you gave, about 7:26, because we were all looking out the window at the time. And the wind wasn't too bad at 7:26. It was maybe 35, 40 miles an hour as I remember, but it was enough to bring branches, small little branches, into my screen. And then I saw this explosion that, it looked like it was geothermal or slightly a little left of geothermal. But it lit up a quarter of our view that we had there. And it only lasted for maybe a second to 2 seconds. And I didn't hear it, didn't smell anything, but I definitely saw some sort of an explosion in that general area right there.
Tom, could that have been the power went out? Would it cause a flash?
Can't hear you, Barb.
Would it cause the flash when the power went out and the power lines broke? Would there been a flash that might have been an explosion?
Well, there definitely would have been a flash at the breaker that opened up, that separated PGV from the load. There definitely would have been a flash there. In fact, such breakers have things called flash arresters. But whether I don't know. What do you think, Suzanne? 38 megawatts of breaker somewhere? I don't know, a big flash maybe, but I personally cannot, I don't know, and I think it's a question that we have to ask to be investigated.
Does anybody else here that's in the room see an explosion of any kind? Because I know somebody that was here last time and said they'd seen.
Someone here last time that talked about hearing an explosion.
I heard.
And somebody told me they've seen it. It may have been Kiba or somebody in Lonnie Puna. I'll keep looking.
What's your full name for a second?
Damien Miller.
Thanks, Damien. Do you have anything else to add?
My wife's father was hospitalized the night of the storm. He had a test done on Tuesday of that week, a lung test that showed that he was doing better than he had done for the last couple of years as he's been continuously battling this. But the night of the storm, he became very ill, and and wasn't breathing well at all, so he had to be rushed to the hospital, and his length of stay was a full week. And personally, we believe that he's still home now, and he's not quite the same. But he's going to get another test here shortly.
What's his name?
Nick Marzi.
Okay, thanks. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I caught the pounds of release there, but did you give us parts per million on how much, do we get a reliable parts per million of the release of the gas?
They have, I don't know, usually 5 wells, production wells running. And each production well has different concentrations of hydrogen sulfide in it.
Right.
And the reason I use the term 1,000 is generally in the past, PGV has calculated that as about 800 and sometimes as low as 600. But EPA in the recent inspection EPA did of PGV, they told them that they were in error and had underestimated the parts per million, and that there was evidence that it was as high as 1,000. So I'm using,
Parts per million?
yeah, I'm using the EPA's directed value, which is 1,000.
That's at the wellhead, no, yeah, because.
Yeah, that's in the well. Yeah.
Right, because the last news, I believe we heard was 0 parts per million, but 62 parts per billion.
Well, that was sample. We're talking about different values. I'm talking about if you go in the geothermal fluid and you take it out and you separate the hydrogen sulfide in a chunk of 0, and then you measure it.
And so my question is.
But what you're talking about is samples that PGV workers took in the vicinity during the release, in the air after it started to disperse.
And the firefighters took one as well, right?
No, there's.
That's an error?
We've talked to Daryl. Well, Mike talked to a firefighter who told him there was a 1 ppm sample, but Daryl, the civil defense administrator, has gone back and talked to all of the fire people that were responding, including the one, and he doesn't deny that was said to Mike, but he does say that the firefighters didn't take a sample.
Did not take a sample.
Did not take a sample.
So did you ask him why not?
No, I didn't talk to him about it. I got that secondhand.
Are we going to get an official report from the firefighters?
That's an issue that I'm going to take board. Mayor Kim is asking that there be an investigation of what happened, equivalent to what happened after the blowout. And I'm sure that Puna Pono Alliance is going to support that, although we haven't discussed it at a board meeting yet. But I'm certain that we're going to support that and ask that they do a complete wash by an outside agency to find out what really happened.
Let me introduce myself real quick so I can tell why I'm asking these questions. My name is
Yes,
John
sir.
Moody. I'm the business manager for Dr. Sally Boyd at the Vitality Natural Medicine Clinic in Pahoa. And we have been treating some people for this, and we're trying to get a handle on what kind of exposure they might be possible for them to actually have.
Yeah.
And how we can measure it.
Yeah, to answer your question, the firefighters never got into the area of where most of the people that experienced symptoms. And when they lost power, PGV's monitors and the Department of Health's monitor, which are the 4 monitors used to regulate PGV, all went out of commission, and we're out of commission for the next week. So the answer is the only way I know we're going to find out what sort of exposures there are is by trying to reconstruct using modeling and simulation or some such tool. There are no measurements to my knowledge. Does that answer?
Well, yeah, it answers that we can't have an answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure the data's there.
Yeah.
There was a hazmat team that was trapped right near the geothermal plant, and they surely must have had some way to measure the exposures, the levels. Hazmat team, before they even operate, they would take measurements as a standard operational procedure. So there must be some measurement from that team. I would fail to think that there would be no measurement from a hazmat team that was trapped in the area overnight, because they got flown out the next day. And then Harry.
The hazmat team was flown out?
Yeah, the next morning, you're actually stuck in the area. And behind you, Harry has a...
But to add what Steve said, I mean, Daryl has told me personally several times, I want monitors on those fire trucks, because I'm not gonna send my people into something like
That's
that.
right.
And so it's really hard for me to imagine that they send those guys out there and they didn't take any readings.
But that would be the standard operating procedure on how to proceed, is how to measure the level. Harry had a comment behind you.
Excuse me, Tom, in regards to our quote, and I think it's important that when you do say something happened, I should like to hear a time so we can put things in perspective. But getting back to the monitoring, I did contact Daryl, Mr. Oliver from Civil Defense in regards to I needed information, what reading was taken, time was taken, date and time. And he got back to me the next day, apologizing for the time delay because of business, that obviously he was. His report to me was that he checked with Hazmat Fire Department and that no reading was taken at any time in regards to the incident. That his report is that the crew could not reach the area and therefore no reading was taken. And so I'm just going to repeat, he called me in regards to Friday morning, and no reading was taken by the hazmat team on site.
Thank you very much.
So my question on that is, why would that fireman have told me one reading and specifically say not another reading? He said
I certainly not qualified to tell you that. Eric, can you tell us?
Yeah, I need to know, where was the fireman, what day and what time?
Yeah, that was Thursday night at 8, right about 8, after they had been drunk, 8:30, right after they had been trapped into Leilani. There were 2 trucks there at the corner of Leilani Estates and, I'm not sure exactly what street, but this side of McCoo. It was on the bottom side of past McCoo, beyond where the trees had fallen down.
So sometime in the vicinity of 8 o'clock Thursday night, that you reported to your reading?
That's what they reported a reading to me.
And that's the kind of things that all of us need to document. Because the issue here is of truth and what did or did not happen. I think it's futile for us to waste any time on the why. It's very important, I think, we document who said and what they reported. And so we can put it together. I really believe that obviously we're going to see contradiction, and I'll say it again. I asked him specifically, for any reading by hazmat team and what took place on Thursday. He reported on Friday, none was taken.
I think there was a second person that said something similar. I believe Philip Kissinger said that, I know he said he saw the fire department, and I think he talked about, we should ask Philip Kissinger because he may have gotten the same comment. He actually talked with those same people at that same time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Bob. I think we need to document, all of these reports. I'd like to ask you one last specific question as for the fire department going into this area, the scene. After the blowout, a emergency response plan was developed, an agreement was made with the Hawaii County Fire Department with PGV that if they do report on scene accident of any kind of release, the responsibility of PGV will be to bring the patient or the victim out of the area, because you need specialized training and equipment to go in, and therefore fire department personnel will wait outside of the area because of the incident. in regards to another point of fact, and that it wasn't a plan, is in regards to the H2S reading. I think it's well documented that after the 1990 blow up, readings of over 1,300 parts per mil was taken at ground zero.
How many? 1,300?
Yeah. So I'm not trying to be very exact here, but I think it is very important. Tom here reported that EPA reported in the last examination of inaccuracy that stated that PGB reported below 1,000. They found it to be above 1,000. There's a huge difference there.
I have a quick question, Tom. Regarding the night after the storm, on Friday night around midnight, I passed two fire trucks that were heading to PGV with just their lights on, silent. It was exactly 12:01 on my car thing. They parked in geothermal, the plant there, went in there, were in there for probably about 40-45 minutes. I'm not real
Are you
sure. I
sure
didn't
it
hear
wasn't
anything about
Saturday?
it.
You sure it was Friday?
It was Friday night.
Because they were out on Saturday too. And
I wasn't sure because I thought geothermal was shut down at the time.
Well, I hadn't gotten to that, but the other thing that we have learned is that once they got the geothermal plant shut down, remember the monitors are out of commission now. They started a pipe cleanout regimen that they do annually so that they wouldn't have to waste any time while they were shut down. They started cleaning the pipes out. And if you imagine you got a pipe full of geothermal fluid and there's hydrogen sulfide collecting in various areas along that pipe. And so their protocol says flush the pipe, and then after flush the pipe with water, and then you take the pipe out and you start the cleaning process. And when on April 2nd of 2013 they did that, and they released 14 pounds, over 14 pounds of hydrogen sulfide to the community. That's known as the dead pig incident, because instead of acknowledging it when Bob challenged them and said, you guys have released something to the environment, they told Bob that it was probably a dead pig. But it turned out that it was this flushing of the pipes. Flushing of the pipes, this maintenance occurred after, remember the monitors are out of commission, this maintenance occurred, and during that maintenance, again, some levels of hydrogen sulfide were put into the community. I know that my wife and I were driving by and smelled it, and my wife became ill. The concentration was high enough that she became immediately ill. Wasn't knocked out or anything. She got nauseous. I smelled it. Bob smelled it several times. Go ahead, Bob.
Saturday night, there was an odor. I went up, I was having to go up to Pohoa to use the internet and use my phone because we didn't have any service. And so I smelled it Saturday night on my way up. I reported it to Civil Defense. It wasn't too bad that particular night. But PGV and Civil Defense said the plant is shut down. We're not doing anything. It can't be us. Then Sunday night, when I went up, it was really bad, and it was different. I think they were bleeding. I've experienced gas cap bleeds, and it smelled more like a gas cap bleed. There were hydrogen sulfide, but it was a choking. As soon as you smelled it, it was like a constriction in your chest. It was scary. And so I reported that, and again, they said, it can't be us. We're shut down. We're not doing anything. And when Mike came to address the meeting, before the meeting, I stopped him outside and I said, there are a lot of people that smelled things going on after that. And if you go in this room and you tell these guys that you were shut down and you weren't doing anything and it's not you, they're not, you're going to be calling them liars and you're going to have a problem. And when he came in here, he was the first time I had heard anything about it. He said, that's when he said, we decided to do maintenance or pipe cleanouts or whatever. But he lied to Civil Defense and he lied to me both on Saturday and Sunday.
And what the question for the regulatory agency, the Department of Health, who supervises the Clean Air Act, the question that I'm going to ask them eventually is, did they authorize maintenance that could cause release of hydrogen sulfide when they knew the monitoring system was out of commission and there was no way to tell what was entering the community? So the reason, I'll get to what's happening with other initiatives in a little while, but anyhow, that's a summary of some of the things we know, and there's a lot of questions, and some of them have come up today. I probably have 2 or 3 pages worth, but there's lots of questions that need to be answered. The key is that we need a comprehensive, independent review, and where'd Harry go?
He's right over here.
Oh, hiding in the back, which I think Harry, you've already expressed for several of us that's a very important thing to do. That as a community, we need to be sure that we ask for that complete, independent, comprehensive review of what happened. And it's more than PGD. It has to be, who made the decision to leave the plant running? When did they discover the problems in Lower Puna? Why did they do callbacks? One of the things that people called up and said, I'm in trouble and I need help. They'd call and there were never any callbacks. Is everything worked out? And some people think that probably there should have been callbacks. There certainly needs to be a review of the emergency procedures in which PGV prepared for the incident. So if you put all those things together, we need a comprehensive review, and the one thing I can say is we at Puna Pono Alliance will be doing everything we can to be sure that occurs.
Does anybody know here the emergency protocol, once you have this release, notification to civil defense? There seemed to be a big delay there between the actual leak that I was experiencing. I'm just across the street from that place. And then when it got on the news, it was like an hour, I'm not sure for sure. It was a long time before they said, you know, it's really low, you just stay in it, but if you're uncomfortable, you can get to the, of course, all the trees have come down by then. So is there some kind of like, I heard that, you know, the minute something goes on, like a release, civil defense, but it didn't seem to go that way.
PGV's report went to the civil defense that they had tripped offline and it lifted the emergency relief. According to PGV, it went to civil defense at 7:26. They also said in their report that they informed the Department of Health at 7:26. I know that Daryl called me. He sometimes calls Bob and I when they have problems with PGV. And he told me at about, I think it was 8:15, he called me and he told me, I can't get a hold of Bob, I wonder if you and your community members could let the people know that there is a release and that we're preparing a civil defense statement. He told me that at about 8:15. Sometime, and I have a copy of it, I don't remember the exact time, they came out and said that there was an uncontrolled release and that people that were feeling discomfort should evacuate.
Yes, during a hurricane.
And it was about that time that my phone went out of commission, so that's the last thing that I know about what civil defense knew and didn't know during the evening.
Tommy, recall a time when the rebroadcasted cancellation of advisory? Does anyone remember the time?
I don't. You, Bob?
No, but I want to say something.
What I do know is I got a hold of Mike Calachini, who's the reference guy at 8:38. Actually, no, I got a hold of Mike Talicchini at about 8:25. He called me back at 8:38, and I noted this time. He told me, and now remember, he's in Hilo. He wasn't at the plant when it occurred. And he called me and back at 8:38 and told me that the plant was shut in. In fact, the final report says the plant didn't get shut in and all leakage stopped until 9/16. That's what the report to the DOH said. So essentially by the report to the DOH, it leaked from 7:26 to 9:16, or an hour and 50 minutes.
Bob, do you have a copy of the so-called plan that was created by the mayor's office?
We may have it, I don't.
I have several copies of it. The one that says at 1 ppm you warn the community, at 2 ppm you evacuate.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what he said, but that was the one that was
The
distributed.
little trifold.
The Leilani Estates.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a copy of that.
As far as I know, I be very careful of what he said here. But as far as I know, there is no other plan in existence in the civil defense office except that, which was created by the staff and then completed by the mayor's office. As far as I know, the previous plan that was developed with all the other agencies' involvement was lost, destroyed, or whatever. And I'll say this again in importance. I hope somebody is listing all of the sequence of events and reports that is going to be very accurate, because we know officially the Department of Health, Tom Gill, Deputy Director of Department of Health, has already stated that there was nothing that occurred that caused any health issue.
Ninu Quirk talked to Barbara Brooks, or I believe that's her name, from DOH, and she was saying that the symptoms are similar to SO2. She was trying to convince Nina that it couldn't be hydrogen sulfide. I wanted to
say that was extremely important, that this community stand together in regards to requesting an outside body, which was done in 1990 by Gabbard and Gabbard. I'm sorry that they're no longer in business today. They're one of the few people that did this kind of study. But when the Deputy Director of Health states before any information comes out, the investigation what comes out, that there wasn't any problem, there weren't any problems, you have no other option but to go to an outside source for investigation.
I wanted to re-announce, at the beginning of the meeting, Tom announced that Carrie here is going to be videotaping. If anybody was impacted or had experiences during the hurricane or after the hurricane they think are related to releases of gases from PGV, please talk to Carrie, and so she can document that and shoot a video, because we are trying to compile all of that stuff in one place.
There are two people that stood up. Are there anybody in that category, people that may have been affected by during the night that have not yet given testimony?
So anytime you're ready, Carrie here will take you in another room and shoot your videos.
On that note, I've also compiled or made a form, an online form, so that I can map where the symptoms, where the symptoms were at the time of each experience. And so I've set it up so that each person who experienced symptoms needs to fill it out. So if there's multiple in a household, that's different for each person.
Okay, thank you very much.
And where is that?
So,
Mike, how can people get access to that?
let me get emails and I'll email a link to it. That would probably be the easiest way.
Why don't we put it up on the Puna Pono website? I will work on it tonight, and it'll be up tomorrow. On the
Okay,
Puna Pono website.
the link to get to Mike's report sheet would be on the Puna Pono website.
Tomorrow.
One other thing though, Laura or Barb, one of the two of you stand up. Or both of you. Laura and Barb, if you felt effects or think you may have, be sure they have your names before you leave, name and phone number,
And physical address.
and physical address before you leave.
You got a question back here, Tom?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I just got here, I only learned recently about the meeting, and I was in Hilo, so I got here as quick as I could. I had 2 instances during the day. I live in Nonavali, and HVO put a seismograph in my house after I had testified a few years back when we were all testifying about the effects that we've had over the years. I've lived in my place in Nonavali for 35 years, so I have a really good history from before geothermal ever started. And when they were injecting, like what they were doing essentially, I know they don't want to call it fracking, but it was fracking, I was getting vibrations in my bed all the time from it. I could tell, you're lying there, and it wasn't my vibrator. But after Senator Ruderman got the anti-fracking bill passed, it stopped. But I did testify at the thing that I do get these vibrations in my house in Nonavali. On the Thursday of August 8th, I was working on my computer in my bedroom, in my house, and sitting in a chair, and there were 2 occasions. I don't know exactly what time it was midday was the first one, and the second one, and subsequently my electricity kept going off and on. So I had several outages, and then after 3 o'clock, somewhere around 3 o'clock, a second thing happened. And it was like a conveyor belt moving from the south end of my house through the north, like a washboard. It was much bigger vibration than the little things that were happening before, just the vibration. So I wondered if anybody else has this experience. I live upwind, so I don't get fumes from it. I have heard in the distance, like a plane noise in the distance when they go off, but I don't have anything but this thing, and now my water pipes are leaking.
Did you say you had a seismograph in your house?
Yes, but the power went off to it. So if there was an incident in April, and it kicked it off, and it never came back on, even though I called HVO and told them. And I truly believe that HVO put it in my house because I've given public testimony saying that I was having this vibration in my house. And I really appreciated Senator Ruderman's anti-fracking bill because it stopped. But this event on Thursday, it was before the storm. It was not windy or anything, and I don't know if those events, it was like, just took a few seconds. It wasn't anything major, but now my pipes are leaking, my water pipes. And so I think it affects my foundation. I know that my street has risen slightly over time. Over the 35 years I've been there, the south end of it, which points towards the geothermal, has risen. We're all on the crust, right? We're all on a rift. We know that. I don't have any problem with that. But I just wanted to find out if anybody else experienced these 2 events, and that's what I came to find out, if those times equate to the events that they had earlier in the day before the storm hit. Nobody knows anything about it. My name's Frankie Stapleton. I have no power though. Okay, I have no power, so I have no email, I have no more nothing.
Can we get you to shoot it on video, just a little quick statement, and then we'll keep an eye out for, we're gonna collect all those. If anybody else had a similar experience, then.
Okay, I'll do that, Ron.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, I have a question about PG&E in general. As I understand it, in case of an emergency shutdown of any kind, the only thing they can do is vent. Is that correct?
I didn't hear the question, man.
I said, if they have an emergency shutdown of any kind, they have to shut the plant down regardless of a hurricane or whatever, the only thing they can do is vent. Is that correct?
I don't think that's true. If they shut down in a controlled manner,
Yeah, I'm talking about a catastrophic
but
event.
anytime the load trips, they tend to suffer, they tend to have an overpressure condition.
If they're at full power or a high power and they can't send that power anywhere, they can't just turn it off.
Sure, I understand that. Okay, so what they're doing is they're venting the system so they take the steam load off of their turbine. Because they can't, right. Why can't they bypass the turbine and go straight into their...
Reinjection?
Uh-huh.
It has to be a liquid, I think.
Well, they have to go to their condenser.
Let me put it this way.
The answer is, I can give you a quick answer. Probably, if they were able to dump it to the condenser, they would need to increase the cooling flow in that condenser by several orders, by 5-6 times. And it takes time to do that, so they would still have the overpressure.
Or they would have to invest in best available control technology and actually put in a system that can do that. And it's money, man.
Well, I understand. That's what I was kind of getting at. Now, you're saying it's 5 times the amount. Why? Because it's
No, it's just an estimate, because I know if you have steam, the kind of steam that's going through a turbine, and the amount of cooling you have in the condenser.
Yeah.
Okay? If you take the steam that's going through the turbine and you don't let the turbine cool it, that means that steam's going in the condenser at very, very high temperature and pressure. And as a consequence, the only way you can keep the condenser working right is you'd have to greatly increase the cooling flow. And this is important because maybe we should, I'll just say it very quickly. PGV wants to be a dispatchable power provider. That is, they go up and down in power. And the way they do that is by bypassing steam to the condenser when Helco doesn't want power, and then using the steam through the turbine when Helco does want power. They do that to maintain the temperature profiles the same on both production and injection wells. So what you're saying is very possible. It's just I'm not sure it's workable in the quick time that they have to because of the trick.
Sir, I have a question. If I take Mayor Kim, word of that we have to do this as a community support in order to maybe get an independent study going. Is that what I understand? And then we have to get together a bond and say, okay, we want this. Is there a place for me to tap into information where we want to do this?
Yeah, Bob, would you like to answer that?
I'm not sure I heard the question right.
His question is as we develop the political initiative to try to do and to try to have an independent study done, how could he know about it? And the answer is are you subscribed to Puna Pono?
No.
You should get on our mailing list. Please talk to Barb and get on my mailing list. And Barb Cuttons, she's not in the room right this moment, but she's got the pink computer and she's sitting right back there.
She's sitting right back there.
And anybody else that's not on the mailing list. And then also we have a website, punapono.com, that has we post a lot of the stuff there.
That would give information to me what I should be doing. I mean,
yes.
The action to
yes.
me. Okay, that's what I'm
saying. And if not, just send us an email or a telephone call. You said you don't have email?
No, I got email. I think
If we have some resources,
Okay.
Almost everything we put out on Puna Pono is mirrored on a place that's probably even quicker and easier to get to, and that's Carrie's website. Carrie, could you provide him how to get on your
Facebook site? We have a YouTube
site?
channel called Occupy Hawaii that's got over 150 videos about geothermal on it, for example. And specifically for this stuff, if you search, I'm starting a playlist called Iselle Geothermal or something like that. So if you just search that, you'll be able to find all those things. And then on Facebook, we have the Occupy Hilo page. And there's also a Facebook page called Save Poiki, Keep Puna Clean and Green. So that's where we've been posting a lot of the geothermal stuff. So
And Carrie's, I don't understand much about social media, but Carrie's, I find out about stuff all the time by reading the email. What are those called when your websites post things to my email?
emails.
Huh?
A notification.
I don't know how she does it. You get right in your email.
I aggregate it from Twitter. We can do a whole training about that. On Twitter, we're OCCHILOMEDA, Occilo Media. If anybody's on Twitter, that's really where you get news in Hawaii.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I have a question about your video testimony. How many people have done the testimony, and what is your plan of action with these testimonies?
The Puna Pono Alliance's plan of action is, first of all, how many? Let's answer.
We have 15 so far, and they are being uploaded as single edits to YouTube, and then somebody, I understand, is transcribing them even. But the idea is to get a record, and a public record, so that other people know what's going on. By the way, speaking of Twitter, Mayor Kanoy just followed me on Twitter yesterday, so every time I post one of your videos, or he does, it automatically tweets out, and then the mayor is like, oh my God, there's so many people down there. So that's the idea, but if you're not comfortable with the video thing, Miss Barb over here, I think, can hook you up with the email list, or if you want to write a story, or however you can get your story to us. But that's what we want to do. Any story you have about the incident, what you saw, what you smelled, what you heard, what you felt, anything that's happened in the meantime since then. On Thursday, it's going to be 2 weeks since this happened. So we've got quite a bit of time. So the sooner you can get your stories down, the better. The more it's fresh in your mind and you think of things. So I'm available. This is Donald. He is also with Occupy Hilo Media. So we're at your service.
Thank you. As Harry Kim mentioned, it's crucial that we develop a timeline from our point of view. Who's doing that? Are you doing that, Tom, or are you going to pretty much yourself?
Yeah, and it will be all encapsulated in an eventual letter to the Environmental Protection Agency, again, asking them to deprive the State Department of Health regulatory control, because they have neither the will nor the wherewithal to properly regulate this.
And we also have been collecting written statements on top of the video, and I was talking to somebody that said that, I believe the doctor, the guy that was here from Sally Boyd's office, and also the urgent care have both seen increased instances of people coming in with problems that they're associating with geothermal. So we're trying to collect that information as well, and I think Michael has something else to say about that.
Aside from Puna Pono or with Puna Pono, I'm going to file suit for damages.
We're more worried about documenting. At this point,
You're asking what's going to be done. I'm going to do that because I'm pissed.
In the main, but for that to be successul,
So you're taking our testimonies to
No,
file suit?
he's not taking his
without
he's not
anybody's
taking
permission.
it. He's not Puna Pono.
Oh, okay. I'm
He's
just trying to figure out what you're going to do with these testimonies.
We're going to document it. We're going to document it for two purposes. One is to use it as leverage to improve the regulatory oversight of the geothermal plant, including my own recommendation is that it should be shut down until they get the emergency procedures squared away. That's my own thinking. So when I say regulatory oversight, I really mean they need to shut them down until they get it fixed. And the second thing is that Puna Pono has a 2-year history of trying to get a health study in the community. And one of the things that's happened in the past is the Puna community has had effects that have been less than I would just say that we haven't documented them very well. And therefore, in many cases, there are criticisms of the community that are unwarranted because we haven't documented the issues. So right now, we want to document it so that there are these documented health effects.
As an example of that is the Department of Health right now is trying to cover their E. coli, and they're publicly saying that they don't think it's possible that this could have happened. And they're trying to blame it on other things already without even producing meteorological evidence, because all the monitoring meteorological stations in the area were down. So they're making statements that discrediting what people here are saying without any corroborating, any basis to say it.
I'll give, the Star Advertiser said Deputy Director Gary Gill made a statement in which he said, this is the Star Advertiser, quote me, and I can't quote it, but I'll just tell you what the essence of it, that the winds were so high that any single person getting extended exposure would be nearly impossible. That you know, you couldn't have any length of time for exposure. The problem is, I don't know if he's right when he says that. I'm not a meteorologist. I haven't studied the wind patterns. I don't know. I don't think he's right, but I don't know that he's wrong. But it's irrelevant, because hydrogen sulfide damage occurs when you breathe it right now. It doesn't, you don't have to be in a cloud for an hour for effects to occur. So it's absolutely a silly statement. And that statement was made with no evidence, no investigation of the community, not a single interview with anyone in the community, that the Department of Health already is trying to discount any possibility.
And they've done that for 30 years. I've been working.
It's outrageous.
Department of Health has always done. In fact, the only reason we have a hydrogen sulfide standard at all is because I sued them. And I had to go all the way to the Supreme Court. They refused to promulgate any rules. They said that PGB was capable of setting their own standards for hydrogen sulfide.
Oh my God.
And this was in the 90s. And so Department of Health, for whatever reason, is not, you have to have something else. You can't rely, in my opinion, you cannot rely on the Department of Health.
For those folks who are seeking to sue for damages, who would be the best people to bring a suit against? And is a class action suit a bit more viable wedge to have something really change here? Because begging them to find some sort of regulation when we have public officials that are uninformed or straight out lying, what is the strategy? Can anyone suggest the best way to create a liability for individuals as well as these agencies?
I'll address that a little bit, having been involved in it 25 years ago. What happened is we had a lawsuit for the blowout 25 years ago, and the lawyer, when we first contacted him, most of us, we said we wanted to go to court. We wanted to get this all out on public record, exactly what happened, how it happened, the whole sequence, who were the players. And the lawyer said, Ken Carlson, oh yes, we're going to do that. What I learned from that lawsuit is a lawyer will tell you anything to get you signed up. You got to get the right lawyer. Because what happened is, in the end, it was all about the money. And everybody faded away, and it was all about everybody was going to get paid off. And we never went to court. And I told him, when I was in on it, I said, well, I want, and he said, I don't care, you're out of the lawsuit if that's what you want. And what happens is, if we're going to do this, then we got to get all our ducks in a row. And this is what's happening here right now. The ducks are getting in a row. The sequence, that's what we're all talking about. All the testimonies, everything, because the Department of Health is going to lie, period. And you can videotape me and you can print it. They're a bunch of liars. They did it 25 years ago and they'll do it again. They're liars.
An example of that is they restarted the power plant.
Yeah.
I mean, they restarted the power plant and they didn't fix the emergency response plan. They still don't have a monitoring system.
Right.
And they didn't even send anybody out to talk to us to see if we were hurt. They just said we were full of shit.
Yep, that's
And
it.
started the plant back up. So it's going to take time. I think that, you know, all of this is going to take months, and you know, to try and rush, I think it's a mistake to go too fast. You have to collect yourself. You have to understand what you're talking about. And there's a statute of limitations of 2 years. So you want to win, you need to do it right.
What Jeff said about lawyers is a caution. I'm not going to tell anybody not to get a lawyer. If you want to get a lawyer, get a lawyer. But there are a whole brand of lawyers out there that want what is called a quick settlement. They find an issue that is hot, that people want to keep out of the paper. They sue, they ask for a quick settlement. The company that they're suing says, okay, I'll give you $50,000. The lawyer takes his $20,000 or $30,000. The plaintiff gets the remainder, and the lawyer's made a quick thing. So just be aware that depending upon what your goal is, should determine how you choose a lawyer and how fast you proceed along this path.
And what Puna Pono would be pursuing, as opposed to personal liability, damages for money, is our group will be looking at regulatory. You know, we may sue the Department of Health or something like that, as opposed to trying to get money.
I have a question along the same line. Has anybody ever tried to file a cease and desist order?
I got them shut down when I sued them for the Department of Health lawsuit. That was the only time I know they were shut down for like 3 months because they had to promulgate the rules.
If anybody has experience in a cease and desist order, I'd like to file that like tomorrow.
I don't have any experience, so I don't know how to do it.
I'm not a legal expert. We have legal people we talk to, and I can talk to them if you'd like. Be sure you and I have each other's email address before we leave, and we can talk to them, and I can give you an answer.
When you talk about having regulators on site, is this a government regulatory?
There's 4 regulatory agencies that have authority over PGV. The head agency that has authority is the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and it's the Clean Air Act, I think, of 1977.
Now they'll put boots in the ground in the plant.
EPA has delegated they are responsible, but as I understand it, they have delegated the regulation to the State Department of Health. So the EPA is responsible for what the State Department of Health does, but the State Department of Health acts to regulate the Clean Air Permit through Clean Air Act through their permit. Additionally, there are mining and engineering permits that are administered by the Department of Land and Natural Resources at the state. And you know, they have to do with, you have to have certain strength of materials to do certain types of things.
Okay, basically you're talking about written reports. Is there anybody physically present that is actually an independent monitor?
I have asked the question. The Department of Health rarely visits PGV.
Okay.
And only on announced things. The Department of Land and Natural Resources is out there commonly and has a relationship with PGV. So I think the 2 agencies have a different approach. The 3rd agency that has the authority to regulate PGV is the county through the planning department. Now, I can sit and say a lot of bad things about the county and how they regulate. But one good thing that they did do is they would not allow PGV to start up until the monitoring system was on. So the county did take some action in that regard. Now, the county is in for more than its share of criticism for the emergency response plan.
I have a question. I am not mechanically savvy, so there's no need to go into a long discussion about it, but I've heard from different places that the facility is not contemporary, it's not state-of-the-art. A lot of the stuff is very, very outdated. What can you folks say about that?
I can say that when the county issued its permit, and I think it's in the state permit as well, they offered exceptions to standard practices. For example, there are homes very, very close to PGV. That is not common.
Yeah,
Most of the time when there's a geothermal plant, there's planned offsets so that there aren't close homes. And as a consequence of those things, there is a requirement in the permits that the PGV uses best available control technology. And there's legal books this high about what best available control technology is. But that is an issue that we have with PGV, particularly in the noise arena, that they never have and never have had any intent to use best available control technology as required.
Best available control technology costs money.
Here's an example, I'm sorry, Jeff, but another example is they used to open vent the wells. Like when they drill a well to clean them out, they just blow them up into the air. First it was for 2 weeks at a time, like HGPA, they open vent that well at 1,300 parts per million, unabated for up to 2 weeks. Even PGV, when they began, were open venting the wells into the community. And Harry can tell you, because he was civil defense there, and he tried to stop me from trespassing. And we used to trespass into the geothermal sites when they would plan these open well ventings. And that is the only reason that they ever change that process to a cyclonic separator, and now they don't open vent anymore. It was because we got arrested. I got arrested 13 times.
And open venting just occurred with the Clean Act. They did it to save money. They did it because the area was in a state of shock. There's no doubt in my mind about these people doing it like that. They'll deny it, they'll deny it, they'll deny it. But there's absolutely no doubt, having seen them all these years, that they did exactly what they did to save money. Period. And they don't give a hoot about the health and safety of the community at all. So yes, I'm angry. I love living here, and I think everybody in this room does. It's a wonderful place to live. And we have to remember that, and we have to keep on this one. We got them this time. I really think we got them in lots of ways. Get them to do it right or shut them down. Thank you. I'm just...
It's the EPA, Department of Health, Department of Land and Natural Resources, and the County Planning Department.
So these testimonies, these are people you're going to be working with to do this, the 2 steps?
Yes. Right now, we're already in discussions with the EPA. We have told the EPA that our community does not believe the Department of Health has the will or wherewithal to enforce the Clean Air Act. And the EPA, we've had one meeting with them since we said that, and the EPA is arranging for further meetings. And now, of course, there's going to be considerably more issues up for discussion when we have the next meeting.
I have a question about monitors. Now, if the power wasn't out and they were online, the information from those monitors would be going to some reliable source that you could go back and say that it was such and such at such a time. I mean,
The monitoring system, I will paraphrase the Geothermal Public Health Assessment Working Group's opinion of the monitoring system. The monitoring system is inadequate and cannot serve its purpose to either provide information to protect the community in emergency, nor can it allow the State Department of Health to adequately regulate the geothermal plant. And that is when the system is working.
So it's not actually a monitoring system, as Chris will.
Yeah, he'll yell at me.
He's right back there, I think.
Sorry, Chris.
There's 3 sampling stations around the perimeter of PGV and 1 sampling station up Kahukai Boulevard about a mile in Leilani. The interesting thing was, and this has been, they know where this stuff is, and they've positioned those monitors so it travels right in between them. The leaks at the main place I usually smell them is Leilani Avenue to Hainalu Street on Pohiki Road, and that's that, and then into the community from there. And they have a monitor Pohoa side of that and Pohiki side of that, and Sunday and Saturday were good examples of that. The impact was right in between those monitors. Even if they had been working, the readings would have been low or nil.
There's supposed to be another monitor non-volatile, because it's pointed, it's got an antenna, and I was told by the association office that PGV rents that space. So it's supposed to be one of their monitors, so I've never heard anybody even mention this one before.
I've heard about it. I don't think they still use it, but at one time they were using it.
State Department of Health shut down several samplers. Shut down several samplers 2 or 3 years ago because they said they never detected any hydrogen sulfide and therefore they were unnecessary. So they used an inadequate system. Because the inadequate system didn't work, they downsized it. That's a summary of what happened.
You've got one right there.
Bob, was there anybody else that heard the mayor's speech on the night of the hurricane saying that geothermal problem was caused by a lightning strike? I mean, I thought that was really, really pretty bald-faced to say it was a lightning strike.
There wasn't lightning.
There wasn't any light.
Yeah, there wasn't any lightning.
I'm right across the street.
The PGD report says that the cause was fallen trees on transmission.
But the mayor put that on the radio,
At the very beginning.
and I haven't heard a retraction.
The mayor lied?
Well, in his defense, let's be careful.
I see you back there, Harry.
I'll say it, Joe.
Yeah, I know, and that maybe happened, but let's try to keep the conversation civil to the degree we can, because well, it's important. And also at the initial stages of the storm, there is a lot of uncertainty.
So Tom, I'd like to know, as individuals, other than recording our statement and writing what we have to say, what are the things that we can do?
Well, I'll bring up the next agenda unless somebody has. It is our intention that we're going to have a public meeting in which we're going to invite somebody from the county, hopefully the mayor and the civil defense administrator, somebody from the Department of Health, undoubtedly they won't attend, somebody from the PGD, and somebody from HELCO. And we hope to have that community meeting set up in a couple of weeks, wouldn't you say, Bob?
Yes.
And so I ask that all of you, when you hear about that, come to the community meeting and hear what they have to say. Yes?
Be sure you go through the planning department, because they were an order permitting agency, so they need to be here.
Okay. Point taken, sir. Thank you. The second thing that's going to happen is Puna Pono Alliance had a very successful educational march when we went to HELCO, and about 5 500 people showed up on the corner there around Russell's store. I think he got a bump in profits. But he might not have, because it might have hurt access to his parking lot. But there were about 500 people. The paper reported it as 150, but I personally counted 473. So anyhow, it was very nearly 500 people. Went to Helco, and it was a prototype Puna gathering in that there were kids doing circus acts. There were all kinds of different kinds of people. Wonderful color from the community, and everybody was courteous and polite to everyone. People were offering the police that were there to monitor us drinks, and it was a good time was had by all, and it was very effective politically, in that I think it had a large effect on Helco's view of future geothermal in this area. We'll see as time goes on. It hasn't been finalized yet, but it is the intent that we're going to have a similar type of educational demonstration again, hopefully in the next couple weeks. The third thing that's going to happen, and some of these might be combined, is on September 4th at 1 o'clock, there's a hearing in front of the Woodward Planning Commission to authorize $750,000 to do a health study from the Geothermal Asset Fund. And if the Windward Planning Commission authorizes that, then the health study that we've been working for 2 years may be authorized.
Can I give a little history of that? Or
you may, Bob. I would just let me finish. I just have one more sentence. We very much would like to use that opportunity to document the community's concern about health effects that happened during this incident, because there will be public testimony. Bob?
So that all came about 2.5 years ago. Puna Pono Alliance put together a proposal to do a health study. And we went to the county council, and the county council approved it and recommended that the planning department fund our study. The mayor vetoed that and said that he could do a better job. And so he created a committee, a health study group, and me and Tom and Laura and about 8 or 10 other people were on that, and we worked on it for well over a year. And it turned out fairly well. The biggest problem that I see with this is we don't have much oversight of that process once it starts. And if anybody's familiar with, you can buy a result, and whoever pays for a study a lot of times will get the result that they want. And so when you guys come to whoever does come to the planning commission meeting, we need to have some kind of community oversight, community watchdog. We need to have some way to be a part of that. And the hardest thing I encountered there was they do not want the community. They're saying we're too stupid to know what we're doing, to be involved, and that we need to let the professionals take care of it. And every time that's happened in the past, we've got a result that is just, we don't feel it's the right result. So I hope you guys will come, and we'll be sending out some information before that.
It's at the Puni Center at 1 o'clock on the 4th of September.
Something that it's a small thing, but something I wanted to mention. Something that you mentioned earlier, I guess the Star Bulletin or the Department of Health kind of negated the possibility of people having gas exposure because the winds were so strong. And that's something I've heard different people say at different times. One of the things that I noticed during the storm was the tops of the trees were bending like crazy, while the low-lying areas where my Kapu'u were more or less still. And as we know, the gases pull in low-lying areas. So I think the winds were very likely maybe blowing it around, but the stuff that was in our, residential areas, with your home, unless you're up in high rise, very likely we were all, getting high doses of it. And that's something I haven't heard anybody discuss.
I think your argument has great merit.
And they made their statements without any meteorological data to back it up.
Yeah.
We're gonna look.
I completely second that from my personal experience of being in the line, that there was actually a long time during this storm where if you had something that was smoking like a cigarette, it would actually cool around your head.
That was
It
my
would not even
experience
rise
as well.
because the pressure was low. And I had neighbors that had severe effects from that exposure, just from sticking their head out when that rushing sound, the wind sound, severe effects. And one more thing that might be helpful that I can offer from a medical point of view is that my experience with patients with H2S exposure over the years and in the last 2 weeks is specifically that there's some symptoms that are going to hamper your efforts, which is that people exposed to H2S have neurological effects, which include apathy, depression, lethargy, irritability, inability to focus, we call it brain fog, inability to concentrate. Those are actually symptoms of H2S exposure from my years of dealing with that. And that people that have that are going to have a hard time perhaps focusing and getting done what needs to get done. So anyone who's having symptoms like that, A, there's help available for it, and B, it's really important to have a team around you that has not been exposed so that they have the mental capacity to help you through it, both from a taking care of your health point of view and in terms of a physical action point of view. So if you're someone who was exposed, just know that those symptoms are symptoms. They're not part of your personality. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay, but you need to get help from outside. Someone that hasn't been exposed is my recommendation. I'm trying to put together care teams for people who've been exposed, for people who've not been exposed. So if that's helpful, if anyone needs help with that, I can talk more about that later. That's all. Just wanted to.
Do you mind repeating that? No.
Exactly.
If Bob, if I might right now, I'd like to call ex-Mayor Kim up and have him talk to us about his observations about what happened and his recommendations of what the community, where the community should go from there.
First of all, I'm going to say certain things that I've been saying for years, and it kind of contradicts what this group and Tom has decided to do, but I sat there thinking that if I don't say something, I won't feel good about it. On the health study, Tom knows what I'm going to say. From the very beginning, I did not support using county monies, regardless of where it came from, to do a health study. I always felt from day one, our problem was with the State Department of Health. You look at any of the state statutes, the county government of Hawaii, as you know, has no health department. EPA releases all of its responsibilities in regards to EPA regulations to the Department of Health. I've stated from day one, it is a responsibility of the Department of Health to do what the community has been crying for, asking for, and pushing for in financing to do this. What are the health effects of anything, whether it be a restaurant downtown or anything like that. And for us to take that away from them, to me, takes away what is a very important issue. The Department of Health has been remiss in executing its duties in regard to the protection of the people of Hawaii. Because of what I think our frustration. And I am just as frustrated, I guarantee you, as some of you, maybe not as greatly affected because I live in Hilo. But Puna is my home. But I do know the frustration. And so the action taken is to push the county government to fund it. And so I'll end that with that, why I don't support it. Not that I don't support a health study. It's what good will us contracting and independent, because I guarantee you, it's going to take time, and I don't even know who's going to recognize the integrity of it.
I'll tell you why we went that way. One of the reasons we went that way was because what Department of Health has done in the past was...
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying...
I mean, as far as health studies.
If somebody by law, which is a government agency, don't do the job, then I would sue them. I want to do their job for them. And please don't let me interrupt or what you want to do. I just felt I needed to say this because I've been saying this since 1980. In regards to what is happening now, I think it's very, very important that you organize in regards to where you go. For my issue, it is a failure of the regulatory system in regards to the state of Hawaii to the geothermal industry. That is in writing and has been said since we rejected the approval of the plan which the county government, by their rightful authority, overrode my objection. But in regards to that, all you have to look at, I've stated to Senator Noah when he was alive and everybody else from EPA on, we have no regulatory system for this geothermal industry. I don't care what happens to your suit. If you prove that they were wrong, an incident or contradiction of information, that release was made by this act of a hurricane, what will it resolve? We must, if this is going to be pursued in regards to part of it, you must pursue the development of a regulatory agency. A regulatory agency that will monitor in regards to the health and welfare of people and establish rules and regulations to ensure that. A regulatory agency that will develop a monitoring system that everyone of any expertise will tell you, we have no monitoring system for this geothermal plant. What they have is a detection, site-specific detection system that they con the people that this is the monitoring system. It is not. All it is to send people around with fixed stations here and there. I think 3 PGB boundaries. One is at Pahoa to see what the level is. Anyone who knows high school chemistry of H2S knows that is mission impossible to get any kind of reading. In regards to just walk with me in regards to the emergency that just happened. Regardless the amount of the release, how can the responsible agencies of response do anything if the agency that is responsible for it does not report immediately what the release is, what is the cause of the release, monitor the release, relays information to the monitoring agency in regards to the quantity of the release and the quality of the release. What good is it if you don't have within the monitoring system and regulatory system wind conditions or where the wind is blowing? What good is any of it unless you have a regulatory agency like California, Iceland, that will identify? I've told a governor 2 years ago, you are in deep shit trouble in regards to re-election, in regards to what you are doing by taking away all of the people's right to participate in their lifestyle. Now this is just an example of that, of what they have done and continue to do. I am asking this group, and I said it at Pahoa, if the community organizes, politicians will follow. You are the best organized group to me in the state of Hawaii representing the community. Even the people of 1,000 friends in Oahu, respects and admires you as an organization. Even the people of Maui. Just look at how many people are here. And you don't even represent the group itself as far as the numbers. In regards to what is happening now, don't let it happen, the end result of what happened before. Some people really pushed it, some people really suffered. 140 round numbers in the suit. All of it dropped because of monetary settlement. H2S is perhaps, the second or third most toxic gas known to mankind. Hydrogen sulfide, cyanide, I think, is above that. That's what we're dealing with. EPA just put out in the paper, you were in violation because you reported less than 1,000 parts per mil. Records will show you you're above 1,000 parts per mil. I saw that sentence in there, I said, I don't know how many people would wake up there, but I knew what the answer would be, very few people, because they don't recognize what they're talking about in regards to what that means as far as levels. Because PGV will come up, the experts that they hire will come up, well, we abate it. So 99% or 95% of it is abated. Well, use your basic math. What's the difference between hit by a car going at 200 miles per hour versus a car hitting you at 50 miles per hour? You know, the impact will be less. And that's a word game that they play, the knowledge game. I'm so glad that Tom is here because everybody that knows him recognizes his background and will respect him in regards to his background of job experience, educational experience, and above all, you know, care. So where do I want you to go? Document. They failed you because of what they said. They have no emergency response plan. How dare they insult you by saying, oh, we know that our plant is strong enough to withstand a hurricane. Holy shit, you know, they better give that building code to everybody in the world. Yeah. That hurricane was unpredictable. They projected the radius of the tropical storm force winds to be over 100 miles. The radius of the island of Hawaii from north to south is less than 80. Hurricane force winds they've been projecting and made release was approximately 30 to 35 miles the radius of the eye. Projected where will the hurricane hit land between Kapoho Point, just north of it, or south of it, somewhere in Ka'u. Well, I don't care where it went, north or south. PGV was within the radius of the hurricane force winds. And how dare that man come over here and tell you, Halco requested that we stay full operation. How dare he comes here and tells you, we were not at full staff, we only had 3 people at work.
5, he said they were above, normal is 3, and he said we put on extra, we had 5. That's what I don't know if it's true, that's what he said.
I'll dispute what Bob heard and I heard, but the fact remains, this is their concept of protecting the public, that we are and will be prepared for the worst case scenario. For the worst case scenario is wind gusts of over 120 miles per hour hitting PGV. By grace of God, it did not happen. Thank you.
Well, not really. I mean, I was just my little perspective on it. I did talk to Senator Schatz about this the day after it occurred. And he's the one, along with yourself, Tom, he's the one that called the EPA. I think he rattled their cage. And that morning I heard from the director of DOH, Dr. Linda Rosen, who was very dismissive of this, as Department of Health has always been. But that evening she calls me back and said, I want to let you know that we're taking this seriously, you know, because the EPA had called her, or whoever, you know. And she discussed, oh, we need some solar power monitors out there, you know, they're very expensive, they're $250,000 each. I guess she expected some sympathy from me on that. I didn't offer any. A couple of days later, she seems to have backtracked and gone back to the storyline of, you know, we don't perceive any problem out there. So I guess my point is the EPA is a very crucial lever here to keep them involved, because DOH is scared of them, and DOH will never protect us in and of themselves, as you guys all know. I propose a motto for them is there is no problem, if there were we couldn't afford it, so therefore there is no problem. That's always been their answer. And the only, so I think that I personally am very thankful for Brian Schatz to make these phone calls. He wrote a letter to the EPA. I was very surprised he did that within 1 day. And I'm pretty sure he's pro-geothermal, so that's a lot of response. The other thing, since there's a lot of new people, and I hate to repeat myself, we are looking for anyone who was not able to vote due to the storm. We have a very important challenge that we need your signature if you're in that category. That's it. Thank you very much. I don't have, I'm just here to be supportive.
Can I interject something on the power of this group? The fact remains, as very gracious of Senator Schultz to follow up, that it was this group that made a request to him to contact CBC. That's the power of your group.
And I'd like to say the power of our group is the community, because when we put out an update and we asked for testimony to the legislature last year, we were able to produce more testimony than anybody else, I believe, and we were able to do it fast, and we got their attention because of that. When we go to the county council, we were able to produce more people at county council meetings because of the community here. They actually showed up, and we got a fracking ban in Hawaii County, and we got a nighttime drilling ban in the county. And but if we don't have that community support, if you guys don't respond when we ask for those type of things, we won't have that kind of power. That's really where we derive our power.
And I'd just like to say that they have plans, people have plans for this community. And they're not going to just go away. They're not going to go away. They want more geothermal out here. And it isn't really for the grid, because we know what's going on with that. There's so many people going to put solar on their houses now, it's crazy. But it's for manufacturing. They want to manufacture out here. And there's no regulations. Harry just said, there's no guidance. So they're not going to go away unless we make them go away. Unless we, as the public, do it. Personally, I love my home here. I've been here 30 years and I love it, and I'm not going away.
You got a question there?
Yes.
I have a question for Senator Runway. I would like to know, is it possible to have a legislative fix for this, describing fines or something like that at the local level? If there's an outgas, $1 million fine. They do that with oil already. I know some of it's through the APA, but some of them also local governments do in places like Alaska or Washington or California. It's an automatic fine that's very, very high. And is there a legislative fix?
To my understanding, the answer is no. I think that such a fine could be put in place right now without any new law by the Department of Health. It was a deal in art. They were serious about wanting to protect us from this. So I don't think we see that will in any of those agencies, but I don't think they need a law to do it. And if they do need a law, I'm here to say, as you guys are tired of me saying, there are very few other legislators around the state that care about us here in Puna, or that think geothermal is a bad idea. They think geothermal is the holy grail. What are we making noise about? That's still the attitude statewide. Which brings me back to the fact that, thank you for mentioning it, because as Frankie mentioned, I appreciate the credit, but I didn't get the fracking ban. The county did that. The county did the nighttime drilling ban. I couldn't get those things through. Which brings me back to the importance of our county council election, and we still have a chance of making a change in what happened with the election. But I think that our actions are more possible on the county level, and I don't think that there's political will to help us out from a statewide.
The Department of Health.
In the state of Hawaii.
The state of Hawaii, so that would have to be at your level, not county, for the Department of Health.
Yes, Department of Health is definitely a statewide agency, and they don't answer to the county. But in terms of the state legislature passing a bill that we in Lower Puna would like to see them have, I haven't been able to succeed so far, and this is one of the most difficult ones that there is, really. But let me just say that, and this is unrelated to your question, sir. I apologize, but when we saw the timeline, or we saw the summary that PGB put out of their press release. Right? You guys have seen that, or what happened? This is what happened. What's that?
Is it the sanitized bullcrap one?
Very sanitized. And I think that the timeline that Harry has mentioned several times that we're going to produce, what we know actually happened in the community that we can verify happened, that compared to their official release, I mean, the discrepancy is so great that I think the whole thing has to blow up when anybody sees what really happened versus what they said happened. And all of us know what really happened, and we all know that what they put out is complete nonsense. And it has to be shown. It has to be shown, look, in the face of this crisis, in our community emergency, these guys are doing PR as usual and completely discounting all of their concerns. I think that timeline and the contrast between what really happened and what they say happened has to be shown.
I would like to summarize one point, and that's that for the first time, just let me say one sentence. For the first time since I've been here, PGD has hired a PR firm to handle releases concerning this incident. Steve.
Well, so I think you have to use all the power that's vested in you as a state senator to get our U.S. representatives and senators to, like as Harry said, the only people the Department of Health will listen to is a higher agency in the government, and that's the EPA. So I think that you got to do all you do, and you know you got to get. Thank you, Brian Schwartz, for writing that letter. But we got to get our federal team mobilized to recognize this at a high federal government level to put pressure on the state, like Harry said, that they're only afraid. Department of Health isn't worried about the county government or legislators at the state level. What they will fear is a congressional investigation or the EPA into this thing. So I think you've got to use the influence of your office to get us that help from our federal representatives and senators to get the EPA mobilized so that we can get independent studies. And why should the county pay for investigation? The EPA should be conducting the investigation of what happened, what violations to the Clean Air Act happened during this catastrophe, and put pressure on the Department of Health to wake up and protect the people. And that's the basic responsibility. So that I implore you to try and use that avenue.
Well, I will, and I already did, and they need to hear from you guys. They've already, I mean, Schatz's office is already. Could you get us like them to come and meet with a group of people? Could you get them to respond to us? Because it is important to the community that they hear it. I mean, I'm glad you came and Harry comes, but I'm glad
we're going to have this community meeting, and DOH is one of the, maybe that would be the avenue to.
I'll try to get DOH, somebody from Senator Schatz's office, and maybe somebody from Tulsi Gabbard's office. I'll do my best to get those people.
Thank you. Thank you, Russell.
And from the other end, could you just briefly summarize, you said that there's an action with the county council, something we can do right away?
Planning commission.
What is the re-vote and how do we do that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kind of step by step what we should do now.
Well, relating to the election that just happened, the ACLU is considering filing a challenge to the election, making all 4 Paoa area precincts redo their vote. And what they need is anyone who is physically blocked from voting on election day because of storm debris. We need a declaration from you, of which I have a copy here, and Roy Lozano is collecting them in his office. He's left you ready, but he's got in his office.
It wouldn't be just block people though, like what if they didn't have internet or phone?
Yeah, and there's a lot of other issues besides trees down.
Well, right now we're focused on people who physically could not get to the polling places on the normal election day. The decision to delay it, that's all secondary. It's a much weaker argument than the fact that the election should have been delayed in this area, period. So we're trying to get, I'm just relaying what they've asked for. They've asked for people who are blocked by storm debris from getting to the polls.
We all know some people, so
Yeah,
let's
you
just
do.
be sure to.
And I want to emphasize the urgency. The deadline for this action is Thursday. We need as many declarations. It's a simple declaration. Any one of those we can get from this group of your friends is gold.
Where do they go to do this?
Roy Lozano has a chiropractic office in downtown Tahoe. He's coordinating this effort in the next 2 days. I have one of them if you want.
Yeah, no, I voted for that. I know one person.
And the reason I mention this is because the county council is going to be appointed next year. The difference between our incumbent and our #1 challenger on the geothermal issue is huge. So it's not, it's not over yet, maybe, and that's what I'm trying to emphasize.
Our office is right underneath Roy's office, and we'll carry the same.
Oh, thank you.
You go, come right downstairs, get it from us.
Chris Bitloff would like a word. Chris?
Okay, one thing that I've not heard in discussion is the fact that the PGV air permit is a 5-year permit. It's coming due for renewal in December, and that is something that we really need to pay attention to. Yes, well, the Department of Health issues the air permit, but we need to use that as a lever. That is a very important document. Without the air permit, they cannot operate. We need to focus on the air permit and get in that permit the things that are needed to actually do proper monitoring, proper regulation and so forth. And you know, you can help us with that.
Okay, will you help us know when that is and what's the appropriate place for input?
Well, okay, the air permit is due the 31st,
So let's send,
31st of December.
let's send Senator Ruderman a written summary.
Okay,
So that he can pass
and
it.
then issue on EPA, so please put in for the right time.
Yeah.
So just, we need to all understand that right now is an opportunity to work on that air permit, make sure that it gets done right this time. Because if we don't, there's another 5 years, and they're up and running, and we're SOL.
Does anybody else have anything before I turn it over to Bob for closing? Corey?
Just want to mention that the Department of Health seems to be coming from, they don't want to do anything that's bad for business. I was in a meeting listening to a Department of Health official, and they were told about a problem, which I can't tell all the details of, but they were told about a problem. One of the person describing the problem had health effects from the problem, and the Department of Health official said, oh, well, it's bad for business, we can't do anything. He literally said that. So they want to promote business, that's where they're coming from, they're not going to listen to us, we got to make them do what they need to do.
Okay. Bob, would you like to close this up?
Okay, so thank you all for coming. We really do need to document this. If you have friends and neighbors, one of the ways this group has been successful is people talk to their friends and neighbors. Please get on our mailing list. And we also can use help if somebody wants to get involved. We meet here every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. And we're going to, there'll be a committee or a group of people for each of the projects that Tom was talking about. If anybody has time and they want to help, talk to Barb and please get on our mailing list. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate everybody coming. Thank you.